The Toronto Raptors escape Indiana. I had a lot of nervous feelings about this game early on. I think the first 2 minutes, it felt like the other team was just playing in fast forward. And this is a team that likes to hang points, and the Raptors are sometimes a team that struggles to break 100 points. How is this going to work? And you needed every point tonight. I think there's a lot of really good contributions. Pascal Siakam with a huge individual performance. Dennis Schroeder, another huge individual performance from those two for sure. Jakob Poeltl struggled a little bit offensively with turnovers, but I think defensively he offered something of note. Scottie Barnes turns in a double-double. Shaky game from him. Defensively, offensively, there was more he could have done against the defense that was there. I think if I had to bet, I think the chain tonight is going to go to Malachi Flynn. I think he was really tough, and the Raptors continue to win in games that Otto Porter does play. My gosh. Continue to win in games that Otto Porter plays. I think Otto Porter is a fantastic player. He's a very error-free player, and clearly, they needed to go into a shortened rotation tonight. Now facing a 2 games under 500, you don't want to get too far behind. I'd said that after 20 games, if this team was at 500, that they would be pretty good on the season because you expect some early struggles with the tougher schedule in general. And you faced a team that was generally putting up 150 points plus on teams on the regular, right? It's pretty regular to see the score and see Indiana 140 and the other team something. This is a team that likes to score. This is a team that likes to push the pace. This is not a team that defends very well. They have tons of defensive liabilities, and tonight the Raptors exploited it. So, Saran saying Malachi is a dog. Absolutely. Tonight he was great. I think he played with a lot of toughness. He comes out. I think he had 8 points in the first 3 minutes of that stint. I think that second unit with OG plus Scottie really, really, really did a great job tonight, and it's good to see. All right, let's hit that intro. This is a call-in show, so if you would like to call in, I hope we don't have any trolls today, but yeah, to anyone who is calling in, if you haven't called in before, I don't recognize you. Just based on what happened yesterday with all the trolls, and given that big Pascal Siakam games tend to bring in a lot of trolls for whatever reason, I'm just going to ask whoever is calling in to turn on your camera. You don't have to keep your camera on. Just before you come on, keep your camera on so I can see you. All right. It's weird. We're living in a really, really weird world where I have to say that. But David Cowan, I'm going to have to ask you to turn your camera on, man. If you don't have a camera, I'm sorry, I can't let you on. Nice win on the road. Great effort from Malachi. My cheeks were clutching the Hield shot at the end, though. Honestly, man, Buddy Hield did not know how to miss tonight, and I'm really happy he missed that one. Gary Trent with 2 really, really tough free throws. I think that was a little bit of a difficult situation to throw him into. He has not been shooting well from the free throw line all year, and he was cold. So I don't know. I expected him to hit both, to be honest. And the minute I opened my mouth, I jinxed him. So yeah, let's hit the intro. And yeah, if you want to call in, link is in the description. All right. Okay, let's look at some box scores for tonight. So, in terms of team stats, unlike last night, you don't get outshot from the field. Like, you don't allow the other team a ton of offensive rebounds. Instead, you are the team that forces the offensive glass. Scottie got on the glass a bit, Chris Boucher, Jakob Poeltl. We'll check out the individual contributions to the offensive glass, but tonight you out rebound your opponent. It goes a long way because you still get more turnovers than the other team. And the Raptors, I mentioned in the live earlier, turnovers have been an issue for this team. It's been an issue across the board. The highest, the biggest culprit of turnovers is weirdly enough Jakob Poeltl. Has been all season in terms of turnover percentage, and that pretty much continued tonight. You shoot 40.7% from three, which is above league average against a team that does not defend well at all. And despite Jack protesting that there's no shot blocker in there's no shot blocker in there. There were a couple of shot blockers in there, but the Raptors knew how to just sort of live away from them because there just isn't a lot of defense around those shot blockers. The perimeter defense is very compromised. Buddy Hield's a bad defender. Tyrese Halliburton's a bad defender. Benedict Matherin's a bad defender. Like they brought in Bruce Brown to be a competent defender, but he's not enough to shore up their issues right now. You can understand why they've been thinking about Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby for so long, if the rumors are true. So yeah, I think the Raptors, a gutsy win. I mean, this is not a team that you would have gone in thinking, yeah, they'll have no problem, keeping up pace. You were thinking like if you played at Indiana's pace, you're going to lose. Tonight, they sort of played at Indiana's pace, but not really, because I mean, as much as you can look at the box score and say, okay, 132 points, holy crap. I think the pace was disrupted enough to make this okay. Like there were a lot of times where the Indiana Pacers were like 6 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds and taking a shot. I've watched quite a bit of them this year. Tyrese Halliburton's one of my favorite players, so I can tell you for sure that does not happen a lot to this team. They are very quick to the trigger. They find great shots early in transition. And, to anyone who's very critical of transition, half court, 0.5 offense, I think you got to see a little glimpse of what 0.5 offense could look like if we leaned into it properly. Motion, movement, quick passes, shooters. I think this is sort of the team that some of us want to see on the court, except without all the compromised defense. Man, Miles Turner would look good though, right? Last year proposed a trade where we would trade Pascal Siakam for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. And this is why I think Miles Turner just, I don't know, he unlocks a lot of stuff, right? In terms of being a shot blocker, rim roller. He kind of spaced out your offense, made it a little bit difficult to go big with Jakob Poeltl. So I don't know. It was pretty competitive. Like it was a lot of lead changes throughout the game. And I think that's pretty relevant in terms of, like how these things have gone so far. Jonathan Convoy. W is great, but some slops on both sides tonight. I will try to call in, but I have some background noise currently. Scottie and Carty forever. Thank you so much, Jonathan. To those who don't know, Carty is Scottie's dog, Scottie's Rottweiler. Yeah, so I mean, again, like you don't completely bend to their will. You don't completely bend to their game, but you play just well enough and you make them disrupt their rhythm just enough at key times. I think Darko Rajakovic, for all the shit that he took yesterday and probably justifiably so, I think today he really coached a hell of a game. It wasn't just the turnovers and sorry, not the turnovers, the ATOs, like the attitude, outside the timeouts, like just getting like really, really just good, sure plays. Even that, that final play where Barnes goes to the basket, where two go to Siakam because they were just, I don't know, they were worried. I mean, this is why somebody does need to get going, right? And we'll definitely talk about, the role of a alpha scorer or like a predator wing or someone who can draw a double and how much that helps the team overall, right? I think that's important. So for some individual performances, Obi Toppin, nobody's idea of a good defender, in my opinion. Miles Turner, Bruce Brown, I think Miles Turner played a pretty competent game. Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield were great. I think OG Anunoby did a pretty good job on Tyrese Halliburton. Like, is that crazy to say? I mean, he got burned a couple of times. There was a couple of ticky-tack fouls. I think that end foul is tough, right? Like the one that the Raptors challenged, that was a little bit tough. It's not going to get overturned because he had his hand right on his hip, but I think he tried to do a good job. I hate to tell you this, but like 33 and 16 is a pretty regular game for Tyrese Halliburton, right? Like it happens every other night. So this is not something like, wow, I can't believe, someone hung this on OG. I don't think it's all on OG, but I think he played a decent game on him. This is a team that leads the league in efficiency off the bench tonight. Not really. I think the biggest net negative, it doesn't really show on the plus minus, really, tonight was Ben Mathurin. I thought he was lost. I think every stint where he was on the court, I mean, Canadian boy from Montreal, I think every stint where he was on the court, he bled score for this team. He looked a little bit lost. Defensively wasn't great. Offensively wasn't great. TJ McCollum was great. Like I know some of the people on this channel love him. And, I know he can't shoot threes. He shot one tonight. But man, he's heady, he's tough, he plays with force. And I think that second unit really brought the force because, man, that first unit was not doing it for me, right? Like the first unit looked shell-shocked by this game. And I think that it's just one of those things where you're not used to playing this fast, and they are. So it's going to take a while for you to gather your wind, learn to play at that pace. You're going to have a few turnovers. But I think the Raptors handled us pretty well, and ultimately they still won tonight. From the Raptors side, you get a huge game from Pascal Siakam, 36 points. He gets to the line. I mentioned earlier, Scottie and him were just not doing a good job of getting to the free throw line. He gets to the line. This is a team that loves to put you at the line. You just have to play with force. And he did. So he gets 36 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a block, which is also really nice to see. Sometimes he's in the backside of the defense and he doesn't get there for the blocks. So tonight he gets that one block. It was a big one. Scottie Barnes with 20 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals. You look at that and you're like, wow, what a great game from Scottie. I don't think he played a great game. I don't think he played a bad game. It was just a so-so game. He leads the team in minutes. I think he was very instrumental in setting the tone for that second unit. I think he set a lot of screens. I think he really, really found Malachi in some really good advantage places. I think he had a lot of near turnovers that could have been fully turnovers. I think overall he just kind of picked his spots, but I think he could have been a little bit more assertive tonight, man. Jakob Poeltl offensively, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. If that makes sense. Like it's a tough team, man. You're going up and down, up and down. There were times where I just felt like he just looked a little lost, right? Dennis Schroeder, I think he played a pretty decent game, man. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I'm not gonna boost him up for 26 points, but he was efficient. He found his offense more within the flow of the offense, but there were still a couple of those Dennis Schroeder moments that make you kind of like pull your hair out. But overall, better than worse, right? Now, I, of course, being the moron that I am, decided that this was the day that I would go on Twitter and start my Gary Trent needs to start over Dennis Schroeder, petition. And Gary Trent was not the greatest, I think, tonight. I didn't love his game overall. Like, just, yeah, it's hard, man. You play 25 minutes, in this type of pace. This is your type of game. This is pace and space, up and down the court. And I just felt defensively he wasn't the greatest. I'm going to have to look at this tape, man. Like, there's a lot of stuff that was going on. I was tweeting during the game. And I would really like to see this game because this is one of those games where you're going to learn way more slowing it down 50% than trying to keep up. Like, you got so many things going on. I was tweeting out about Jack Armstrong, and we'll get to that at some point for sure in this live. But yeah, Chris Boucher kind of limited minutes, Otto Porter limited minutes. They really went like tight. Like, they played massive minutes for their starters, other than Dennis Schroeder and Jakob Poeltl. Like, they played OG 36 minutes, Barnes 39 minutes, Siakam 38 minutes. It's like, whoa, did we hire Nick Nurse again? Honestly, man, it was needed. It was needed. I hate to say it, but like Grady Dick and Jalen McDaniels have not been positive for you all year. And Darko had to cut it to a 9-man rotation. If I'm not mistaken, it's the first time this year he's gone with a 9-man rotation. It might be the second. But I mean, you know what I mean? It was completely necessitated. Like this is one of those teams where 2 to 3 bad minutes is like 20 points, 22 points. And as a team that struggles to score, you can't have those shaky lineups out there. And I think that they came in with this idea that they were going to pull the plug on anything bad really quickly. And so what I really liked tonight was Darko's, first of all, obviously his play calling out of timeouts was awesome. But more so than that, I liked his command of the game. And he was going up against, in my opinion, like a really good head coach on the other side, which is Rick Carlisle. So I think that he did a fantastic job, and I think big kudos to him. I'll address this very briefly. This Jack Armstrong like bias when he's calling. Like one thing you didn't say, pot calling the kettle black, Rob. Like you're pretty biased. You have your favorites. You're definitely going to cover Christian Coloco a little bit differently than so-and-so. You're going to cover, Otto Porter a little bit differently than Dennis Schroeder. Sure. Okay. I have my favorites and I'm very clear about who my favorite players are, but I'm not covering the game. Like I got to tell you, like, this is just it's so blatantly weird to me that you have a guy, who's been covering this team for so long, who feels the need to kind of like espouse the sort of Pascal propaganda while he's going out. And that alone is fine because I understand that he has a lot of respect for Pascal and a lot of respect for Fred. And so this is exactly why he does this stuff. But at what point do you need to convince the home crowd that this is the guy? Like he's been doing this for like 3-4 games now. And I wonder if, he's been told by somebody that, hey, he was critical of it's weird. It's almost like he is listening to this channel in a really weird way. He was critical of he was critical of motion offense and egalitarian offense. So he was like, you need, this is why you need to get your guys to shots. I get this whole 0.5 thing, but this is your guy. That was one thing. So it's okay. I get it. You want Pascal to get more touches. You're a former coach at Niagara. I get it. You have a different philosophy. All coaches, who call games have a different philosophy. They don't like a certain timeout. They don't like a certain coverage. They don't like a team going zone. I get that. What I did not get was the double standard in how he was calling Scottie versus Pascal. And it was really weird to me. And I was like, is this where the fan base is getting this shit from? It was very weird to me, man. It's like, on back-to-back plays, Scottie and Pascal both made mistakes. But the way he called Scottie's mistake was like, oh, you got to stop arguing with the refs. He did this last year too, a couple times, and it really pissed me off because he wasn't calling Nick Nurse out for arguing with the refs. He wouldn't call Fred VanVleet out for arguing with the refs. When Fred VanVleet went at Ben Taylor, he thought that was a great thing by the leader. And it's kind of this narrative, just as a fan, that really prompted me to start this channel in the first place, because I saw this kind of like double standard everywhere. And I just think it's a little bit obnoxious. I think it's a little obnoxious, and it's a little weird that you have an all-NBA, all-star max player, and you have to keep reminding people when he comes into the game that he's your top guy. You need him. You can't win without him. And it was weird. It's like, where was this coverage in San Antonio? Where was this coverage in games you won where Pascal Siakam scored 11 points? It wasn't there. So was at that point he was saying, the guy who was scoring 30 points in those games, was he the guy? No, he wasn't. At that point, he was saying Pascal's not getting the ball enough. But then if Scottie's not getting the ball enough, he'll say he's not being assertive enough. If Pascal misses a coverage on defense, it's always somebody else's fault. I find this really weird. And I say this just because I think with great power comes great responsibility. If you have a national broadcast and you are viewed as a coach, people don't have a reason to second guess what you're saying, and they buy it as factual because clearly they would be humble enough to know that this coach who's calling the team professionally would know more than I do about the game. And so they will go with that as gospel. And so often when I'm talking to Raptor fans at a general function or a bar, I'll hear them basically quoting Jack Armstrong without even realizing they're quoting Jack Armstrong. This is a person who told you per rate stats, per 100 stats, per 48-minute stats, per 36-minute stats were useless. I think we can get past the idea that Jack Armstrong really is the holy grail of basketball. It's kind of crazy to me, man. He likes guys who score. He likes guys who shoot. Ultimately, this is probably why he's not a coach. This may also explain his record. I'm not trying to take digs at the guy. I've met him 4 times across 2 decades. I'm actually surprised that he's doing this. I don't get it. I really don't. What is the point? You're picking on a 22-year-old who's having a pretty decent game. I don't think Scottie had a bad game. I don't think he had a good game. He just had a game. But I mean, just call it even. One guy blows an assignment. Oh, it's like the floor is slippery. The other guy blows the assignment. He needs to get back in the play. Like, it's so weird. I mean, can you imagine, like, for instance, that last play where Siakam steps out of bounds, right? It could happen to anybody, right? Like, the feet are big, court small. It could happen to anybody. But can you imagine that same thing happening to Scottie Barnes? Oh, this is a lack of focus. This is why you need to get the ball in your, better players' hands. But then the ball is in your better players' hands. Like, even when Scottie hit that 3, he was like, this is why you need to get the ball into Siakam because, he can suck in the defense. And it's like, bro, like, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre. I didn't like that he did it with Fred last year. I understand that these guys have their own relationships, but, just drop the bias, man. The fan base, honestly, for one night could just use a break. I think we can all fight our horse tomorrow. We can all say like, oh, I'm pro, building around Scottie. And the other person can say I'm pro building around Pascal or shipping out Scottie for Dame or whatever. We can have that fight tomorrow. For tonight, like, let's just try to swerve away from that and talk about the game if we can. Coach Mo, hang tight, man. We're gonna let on a bit of a risk. David, are you a real person? Okay, dropped. Okay, that was risky. What's up, Coach Mo?
You said it beautifully. They bias Jack Armstrong. He was on a soapbox today, extra thick.
Why though?
I don't know why. And constantly reminding us Pascal's that guy. Pascal had a great game, but offensively, but yeah, it's just, I mean, they're just beating us over the head with it, like hardcore with a sledgehammer. Um, Darko, this was his best game, by a wide margin. You talked about the out of bounds plays. I agree. What really helps though is Precious is out. He can't play. And there was somebody else. Who was it? There was somebody else missing. Oh yeah, Grady Dick never got on the floor, and Jalen McDaniels didn't get on the floor, and you didn't have access to Precious Achua.
Just to be clear, if we had Jalen McDaniels, he would get on the floor. I mean, sorry, if we had Jaden McDaniels, he would get on the floor, not Jalen McDaniels. Did you say Jaden or Jalen?
Yeah, R. McDaniels. Now I'm confused. R. McDaniels. He wasn't available today? He wasn't available?
Oh, he was available.
Okay, yeah. So
he was ready. He was like, "Put me in, coach." Coach is like, "Nope." We've had enough -13 box plus minus games from you, my friend.
Just a random cheeky question: if we had the other McDaniels, does he start or does Dennis start?
Bro, I feel like right now, if you had Steph Curry, Dennis would start.
Yeah. Okay. By the way, my picture. That's a little shout out to you. Sometimes
that's hilarious.
There's a video.
I caught the reference. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a video you can click on to make yourself feel better in dark times. But yeah, the 4 bench rotation. I think. I truly believe you have to choose between Precious and Boucher, and if you want to win, you have to choose Boucher. If you want to win, you choose Boucher. He's the better shooter. He actually, it's weird, he plays more within himself, and that's not saying much for him, but that's just
they're really different players. I know that everyone lumps them in together, but they're really different.
They're really different.
Yeah, like I mean, like I'm not saying they're really different, like one is terrible and one is not good. I'm saying like they have like different roles, like they do different things on the basketball court, right? So like Precious can be like more of a point forward initiator, but he's not very good at it, and maybe he's even terrible at it at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's more of a switchable big, whereas like Boucher gives you a little bit more on the backside. They both rebound and they both run in transition, so they have that. I've seen lineups where they've played really well together, and they can be a terror on the glass. But you're right. Sometimes it does conflict with your two knucklehead, philosophy.
I remember years ago. It's like you have to stop the coach. You have to save the coach from himself by like removing certain players he likes to play, because it's like, okay, this dude, I like the coach, but he has a blind spot for this player and he's just going to do this or do that. So you just remove someone from the equation so he can't do it. But I'm okay with I don't even care if it's Precious. I just don't think you can play both of them. I thought his rotations were a little better. He pulled OG out early in the first, right? He didn't just pull Scottie and just let every other starter just play almost the entire first, and then Barnes is left on an island with the bench guys. So
right,
that was better. Auto played, that helps, right?
it helps
You have
so much.
Auto Boucher, Flynn, and Gary. Okay, so now you have 4 guys. I think Otto and Boucher and Flynn you can trust to have decent to good games, right? The problem was Gary's a wild card, Precious is a wild card, McDaniels is a wild card, and Gradey's a wild card, right? And often they're on the negative end of the wild card. Now you have 1 wild card. That's a major difference.
So like in a game like this, I kind of mentioned it earlier, you don't have a ton of room for error. You can't really bomb 3 for 3 with them. You don't really have the firepower to go. So you have to be super steady, and you have to limit. Like, I think I'm not in the coaching huddle. I'm not in the coaching meeting. I was not in the scouting meeting, but I would imagine that if I was doing scouting, the scouting report for this team, my goal would be never lose 2 minutes by too much. And by that, I mean, like, don't let them hang 15 points in 2 minutes, because you're not going to recover. And they kind of came out and they did that right away. And you see how fast that first timeout came.
But the timeouts were there. Today, the timeouts were there.
Right. It happened right away. And it was the perfect place. And there have been too many times this year where I've been like, he should call a timeout here. And he'll wait 2 more plays, 3 more plays. But against a team like this, the way Buddy Hield was hitting, the way Tyrese was hitting, 3 more plays is 9 points sometimes. The 3 ball, especially for a team that scores in such succession, it kind of speeds up your entire rotation, right? So like, for instance, whereas previously he might be comfortable putting Gradey or McDaniels in for 2-3 minutes and letting them just have a shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Gradey pulled in 2 minutes before. We've seen McDaniels pulled in 2-3 minutes before. We've seen them get a 5-minute run. But typically, if it's really, really not working, he'll pull it fast, right? This is a pretty smart team, the Indiana Pacers. They're pretty good at finding the advantage. If you let a guy roam into the paint, they're going to find that guy. Tyrese is going to find advantages in transition. So a guy like Gradey, for whom the game is already too fast, this game, he would have been lost. Mm-hmm. So this being the first game that Gradey did not play does not surprise me at all. This would have been the worst game in the history of the world for him to play. Not because he can't shoot threes, because he can clearly shoot threes, but defensively, if the game is super fast for him against a team like this, like, you would be so lost. I mean, even Jakob was a little bit lost. Even OG was a little bit lost. Even Scottie was a little bit lost, man. Like this pace is not normal. Like, it is. I mean, in a 7-game series, they're going to get fucking dusted. I'll tell you that right now. Any team that has like a week to prepare for this team and has like 2 games to get used to them is going to kill them. But in a regular season, this is the type of team that absolutely destroys you when you're not watching. So kudos to the Raptors. Like, I was not expecting them to win this game. And I had a 4-leg parlay, which had the Pacers. And right around fourth quarter, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I'm like, I'm cashing out. I think the Raptors are going to win. And it's going to destroy my parlay. And I don't want to be rooting against the Raptors to keep my parlay. My girlfriend's like, why don't you just see what happens?
The bright spot today, though, was there wasn't a better time and a better place for Pascal to have a game like this. Huh?
Why do you say that?
Right in Indiana.
Okay.
Rick Carlisle, front row seat. Pascal doing his thing. Ben Mathurin on the bench player, struggling. Jarris Walker not even playing. Uh, Nembhard in street clothes. I mean, if
Oh, okay.
God is shining down on us tonight, he did.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Right?
I
Now
gotta
the
tell
dream
you,
scenario
if
is
if if I'm watching this as Rick Carlisle, I'm not necessarily as enthused by this 36-point outpouring on my team's head.
yeah, but I think Siakam makes a lot of sense for Indiana because he's a change of pace of what they do. Because on a game like today, they had no other recourse, right? It's run and gun and just throw things at the rim. That's their. It's they're like they play in chaos. There's no. It's like when Kareem got a little older, the Lakers
Yeah.
Showtime, but they still had Kareem in the half court, right? It was like you young bulls run, and if you don't get anything, I'll get there, and then we can, So I think that kind of thing. Not to say it's great.
I mean, generally speaking, if you have to see this holistically, right? Clearly, someone has made a decision at some point to shift the offense from Scottie to like this Dennis Siakam thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened right after San Antonio. So you can draw a conclusion from that what you will. Was San Antonio his coming out party? Absolutely. Was it the day that every single person got on their fucking soapbox and said he was a superstar and that he had arrived and he was going to be an all-star and this is his team? Yes, that is. So at the end of the day, you have that hoopla, and there's three possible outcomes that I could think of. Number one, he felt that and he didn't like it, Scottie. And he basically said, all right, I'm not an individual person. This is becoming about me. I don't want it to become about me. So we're going to actually turn the offense over to Siakam and get him going because he's really struggling. I don't doubt this theory at all because that's totally in line with who he's been his whole life. The other theory would be that it had nothing to do with him at all, but rather it was Pascal Siakam's camp basically putting pressure saying, bro, you just put up the worst game of your season. San Antonio was bottom for him. This is just like last year when there was a game before LA where Fred just had a bottom game. And then he came out and he put up like 28, 30 points or something like that. And it was just like, it was so immediate the switch for Fred because he pretty much, I think like he posted like bet on yourself. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. And it was like next day, boom, it was like he just came out and he was attacking the rim. And it was like, whoa, where the hell is this Fred VanVleet been? What did he eat? What did he drink? It was kind of like that. So you could think of it like his agent and his people said, listen, bro, like I appreciate this whole like you trying to buy into the offense, but you are struggling mightily, my friend, and your numbers do not look good and you need to get going. And he's just like, all right, next game, bet. There's that. Or number three, you can look at the option number three, which is that either Darko, Masai, MLSE, somebody decided that this is a trade asset. We're trying to move him. His numbers look like shit. Every day they get worse. We need to put a pause on this little parade you have going on with Scottie. And we need to get this guy featured on offense because teams are really not going to trade for a 16-point per game scorer making a max contract. So, and it's not even that the team is not going to trade for the 16-point per game scorer. It's the team is not going to feel that they can sell it to their fan base. At the end of the day, like what you give up for a particular player, the other team receiving that player is going to check their fucking stats too. Mm-hmm. So now, like when you really, really start to think about how the NBA media machine works, right? I mean, you got a whole bunch of people on ESPN now being like, oh, Pascal Siakam, 36 points. People don't really give a shit about what happened between Indiana and Toronto. This is not a really major market versus major market. This is not a contender versus contender. This is not a, in-season game. This is not a game between, the Denver Nuggets and the Philadelphia 76ers where there's some major rivalry between two players. Nobody gives a shit about this game. But at the end of the day, someone more of a fan base for New Orleans or, Indiana or whatever team you're thinking of trading this dude to, they are going to pay attention to, 36 points. We could use this dude. Atlanta. Hey, man, AJ Griffin's not fucking playing for us. Jalen Johnson's blowing up.
Yep.
Maybe now we feel a little bit more comfortable about this package. So, look, I think Masai's playing the long game. I I don't necessarily think that there's a way in hell that this season is going to end with, us going into free agency with both Pascal and OG expiring and Gary expiring, and we're going to try to re-sign all of them back. I think, like, hopefully we've learned our lesson from trying to do this and realize that that's not going to happen. Or here's the fourth option. Fourth option is, he had to sit down with the coach and Masai, and they came to the compromise of, I'll do my best to play within your offense, but you got to have to bend to me a little bit too. And you need to let me get in rhythm. And this is how I'm going to get in rhythm. I'm going to take my shots. But this offense has not looked like what it was supposed to look like. It's looked a hell of a lot like last year's offense, man. This game reminded me of New York last year when he went crazy for 52. A lot of the same shot diet, a lot of the same offensive sets. There wasn't a ton of like you can say, like, with Scottie in the second unit, with Scottie, OG, etc., you saw a little bit more of it.
Yeah.
But the minute it was the starters with Dennis and Pascal, it was a lot of two-man game. And it was a lot of OG's going to watch, Scottie's going to watch. Now, you got to think about this from the long-term perspective of, like, getting Scottie reps. Very important for your long-term future. I understand whether you're a Pascal fan or a Scottie fan, it doesn't really matter. You cannot deny me that getting this dude reps is very important. Some people are going to say he had 17 points, Rob, or 17 shot attempts. Bro, I'm not talking about fucking layups. I'm not talking about layups at the rim and put back dunks. He's had enough rep at that. I mean, like, actual high leverage, high quality moments in the offense. Now, it's up to him to take it. If he wants to take it, he should take it. But I think that there is a case to be made that OG and Scottie are a really big part of your future, whether Pascal is there or not. Regardless, they are going to be there. They are a big part of it, and they need to develop as well. You may not want to play Precious. You may not want to play Gradey. You may not want to play these guys. But at the end of the day, this season is not going to result in a championship. I will bet so much this is not going to result in a championship. Yeah. So if you're not aiming at championships, and, the best thing you're going to be able to aim for is, like, to be a competitive first round out, right? Unless there's some major roster shake.
But that's where the Dennis thing comes into play, right? Because it's not necessarily Siakam, it's Dennis. Siakam's usage is pretty high, but again, he's a trade asset, so you can understand that, and he has a legacy here. That's understandable. Whether you're a Pascal fan or not, that's understandable. The Dennis thing is weird. Also, I was watching the first quarter. I swear to God, the first 4-5 minutes, every action Dennis didn't initiate went well. Every action Dennis initiated went bad.
You're not lying.
It was like clockwork. I mean, it was so eye-opening. Another thing I noticed, in one play, Dennis and Scottie are, like, on the weak side, right? Dennis is kind of at the top, and a defender splitting the difference. Well, he should be splitting the difference between them. He's like, nope, I'm gonna get closer to Scottie. Schroeder's open. He's like, take the shot, go ahead. Dennis can actually keep a very high efficiency because no one's guarding him. No one cares for him. You talked about the Paul George podcast where he talked about he's open. You're open for a reason.
Yep.
If I had to ask you, other teams, so far our 4 best players this year, offensively at least, or overall, Scottie, Pascal, OG, Dennis, name them in order of who you want to be the leading scorer. If you want to win.
Dennis.
Who do you want to lead the team in scoring?
Dennis.
Yes. Who do you want to lead the team in shots?
Dennis.
Who do you want the ball in their hands most of the time?
Dennis.
Exactly.
I can show you the analytics on this. It's actually undefeated. Hang on, I'll pull it up.
You want Dennis to score as many points as humanly possible, because that means Siakam doesn't have the ball, Scottie doesn't have the ball, OG doesn't have the ball, and at least 2 of those 3 will be out of rhythm.
Check this graphic out. So
I don't care if he shoots 100%.
Yeah, check this graphic out. So time on ball, this is prior to today's game. So time on ball, Dennis is at 39%, Scottie's at 20.4%, Siakam's at 16.5%. This surprises absolutely nobody. Potential assists per 24 per minute, Pascal is 3.24. Scottie is 3.14. Dennis is 2.1. In terms of high value assists, Scottie is 92.3%. Dennis is 77.9%. And Pascal is 76.6%. Most good point guards are above 90%.
Mm-hmm.
I say this, and people are probably asking, what the hell is a high value assist? Here you go with your analytics again. Don't think it takes a genius to realize that layups and threes are really good for your offense. If you look at the Indiana Pacers, you look at any high octane offense, it's a lot of threes and a lot of layups. It's what the Indiana Pacers did to us. Actually, if you look at their shot chart, I'm pretty sure it's going to show you a lot of threes and a lot of layups. And you look at the Raptors, disproportionately, there's a lot more, a little, like I think the Raptor shot diet was pretty decent tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everything inside that sort of midi post area, that's pretty much all Siakam and Dennis. But like all the threes outside that they took, I think that's the difference, right? Like, but when you really, really consider it, the high value assist is important. Also important is the advantage generating assist. Sometimes you just pass to a guy and he takes a shot. Sometimes you do something that shifts the defense and then you pass to the guy and he's wide open. The advantage generation component of this has been broken down by Sampson several times, and I kind of lean into, I haven't fully read all of his work on it, but I've done a little bit of this stuff myself on advantage generation, and I just haven't like indexed it and put it together in a video. But I think it's very useful for people to understand that assists are not made equal, just like rebounds are not made equal.
That's it.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to compare offensive outpourings is to stop looking at points, rebounds, assists, and start looking at rebounds as a percentage of rebounds in the game. Points as, because like for instance, let's say there's a game where like nobody plays any defense and somehow the game goes to like 178, like 162. Bro, someone scored 50. Someone scored 40.
Yeah.
Like someone went crazy high, right? But then you go to another game and the score is like 97, 99. Right now, one person does not determine the pace of the entire game. I mean, one person can have a disproportionate impact on the pace of the game. But I think that when we start talking about this guy scored 25, this guy scored 50, or this guy's a 23 point per game scorer, but this guy's like a 22 point per game scorer, I think we need to look at it in the context of like, the games they scored those points in. Were they high scoring games or low scoring games? Are they high miss games? Are they high rebounding games? Like if your team has 70 rebounds somehow and you manage 7, to me, you manage 10% of your team's rebounds. However, if your team had 35 rebounds and you got 15 of them, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you suddenly have 42% of your fucking rebounds. Like
how many of the rebounds were contested?
That matters too. So I look at it as that. So like, you know, the problem, and this is why when people say like why per 48, why per 36, why per 100, why per 75, this is why. Because when you play so fast, like when you play relatively faster than the rest of the league, stats inflate a lot, right? So even right now across the league, right, when you're looking at a 25 point per game score, if I flashed you like every single player in the league, like, man, scoring is up. It's up across the league. 3-point shooting is up. Scoring is up. We played so fast today that we would be dizzying for the 7 seconds or less Suns from 2004, 2005. Dizzying. They would have never seen anything this fast. Of course, this is not the first time pace has been on a massive uptick. There were like vintage times, the 70s, 60s, where pace was super fast. Then the 90s kind of crawled to a halt. Things got really slow in the early 2000s, and then things started to pick up again. And so, like, we're in an era where, like, you really can't compare, like, what LeBron is doing now to what LeBron did in 2005. Like, you really can't. And that's such a funny thing to me that this context is missed by analysts who talk about it. Because they'll be like, look, LeBron, 29 points per game. And then now look, LeBron, 29 points per game. It's like, bro, no shade to LeBron. LeBron's awesome. But, bro, he was scoring 29 points per game when his team was averaging like 92, 94. And now he's averaging 29 points per game, and his team is averaging like 120 or 115. I don't know those numbers exactly off the top of my head, but I guarantee you those numbers roughly scale. So it's like, it's a completely different game. We're talking about like, and I think today you just saw an exaggerated version of it. And, you know, and that's why I say like, so like, how do you accurately, like for the casual fan out there who's struggling with this concept, what is Scottie's 20 and 12 game in a game with this many possessions? It's actually closer to like a 15 and 8 game, right? So what is Siakam's 36 and 10? It's probably closer to like a 28 and 7, right? So you got to scale it back. So it's the same thing. So, but like when people see like crazy numbers on like Tyrese Halliburton and be like, oh my God, 33 points and 16 assists. It's like, bro, like how many possessions were in the game? Because that's going to impact like how many rebounds you had, how many block opportunities you had, how many steal opportunities you had. Possessions impact everything. So everything has to be done on rates. I think I'm using this sidebar to explain why like I lean more into analytics as opposed to, and why I generally don't like to talk in like raw / box scores like, oh, this guy's averaging 32 points per game. Like you're not going to hear me talk about, like, I don't think I've ever mentioned Scottie's averaging 21 points per game or 20 points. I don't care. That doesn't matter. It's actually like, because the Raptors are not a super high scoring team, right? In general, they're not a super high scoring team. They don't run the pace too much, right? They struggle to eke out, like sometimes they're at fucking sitting at 42, 43 points, right? You see what I mean?
I get it.
So you have a guy on another team where like they can break 70 and a half, no fucking problem. And then you got Scottie on the other side or Pascal, and you got to be able to adjust what you're looking at to match the other side. Because if Pascal is playing or Scottie's playing for one of these teams that crack 70, they're going to be a part of that just the same way they're a part of this. And so suddenly, you know, the numbers are going to look a little bit different. The fucked up thing for Gary right now is he could probably end the season averaging 8 points per game. And to the average fan out there, 8 points per game is never going to be scaled up to 10 points per game, rate adjusted because his team played slow, right? It's never going to look like that. He's going to be an 8 point per game scorer. And this is why we have to stop talking about we have to stop talking about numbers this way. It driving me crazy, right? And to hear Jack Armstrong say that we need to that it's okay to talk about numbers, that like these numbers don't make sense. It's like it is truly a sign of absolute lunacy that a person could have a platform and then try to lead people away from evolving their mind past raw / scores. Like it's such a casual, stupid.
You bring up Gary, right? In the 21-22 season at 23 years old, he was averaging 35 minutes a game. He started 69 of the 70 games he played that year. He averaged 18 points per game, and he was shooting 38% from three.
I mean, tell you about raw box scores, man.
No, I'm just saying. I'm like, boy.
Okay, perspective.
You talking about 8? It's hurting over there in the Trent household, eh?
I don't think they're hurting too bad. Let's just leave it at that. I don't think they're hurting too bad. Here, I'm gonna share my screen. Hang on one sec. I'm gonna pull up Gary's career stats, and you can see like the fall off from last year to this year, and it's pretty extreme, right?
Do you remember when he was just dropping 30 on like 60+%? You remember that?
Yep. Okay, so this is the fall off.
He's so much better than Powell. I remember that.
Yeah, I've never really bought into him being better than Powell. I've never ever bought into that. You're
for
never
that
going to hear
1
me
week,
say
he
that.
was better than Michael Jordan. If you ask Raptors fans, for that 1 week.
They're crazy. Okay, so here's the fall off for Gary Trent Jr. Okay, so I'm going to look at it per 100 possessions. Y'all can, fuck off if you don't like that. I don't care. That's the best way to look at this. So for the last 2 years, okay, he's been almost identical, 26 points per 100 possessions. So what has actually happened here? Field goal attempts are down. Per 100 possessions, field goal attempts are down. Field goal percentage is down. 3-point attempts are down. He's gone from 11.1 to 10.5 to 9.2. 3-point percentage is actually up from last season. I don't know if that, like, what was the 3-point percentage today? Because this is not factored today. Let me just see here. What was it today? So today he shot 2 for 4. That's good. That helps his percentage. So he's actually shooting closer to 38% now, which is good. That's going to help him a little bit. I mean, if you're going to be putting up sorry numbers, like, you might as well put up efficient numbers from my perspective. In terms of like, this is massive drop off in terms of efficiency, right? So usage rate is down by 3%. At 18.6%, he is now below league average usage. So your 20-point per game scorer, as you call him, is now below league average usage. League average usage defined at 20%. Never really a super high usage guy because he doesn't do a lot of playmaking for you out of that spot. Last year, he had 4.5 win shares. This year, through 11 games, he has 0.1.
I think that's a lot of the lineups he's on with.
Bro, his win share rate per 48 has slashed by 500%. He has dropped 500% in terms of value. In terms of box plus minus, last year he managed to post a positive 0.2. He is now a negative 4.1. That tracks. So he is basically 500% worse than he was last year. Y'all need to do something, because a 500% better than what you've had so far, Gary Trent Jr., pretty much wins you 2 more games.
And
I'm willing to bet on it.
And that's where you have to start him, because you need value from him. You can't afford to not have him, right? Like, you got to get him going. I think, and if Dennis goes to the bench, I think you're going to get a good Dennis regardless. I think you're going to get a productive Dennis, whether he's on the bench or he's starting.
I mean, okay, so like, here's the thing. He has to, it's tough, right? Because on the one hand, you and I can say that, but on the other hand,
you're not getting anything from him or Gradey, right?
Well, I think at some point, unless Dennis, touch wood, gets injured, it's really hard to take a guy who's playing relatively well by the stats, by the analytics, and then to replace him with a guy who's playing horribly. Like, I think this would have to be a conversation that Dennis and Gary have, where Gary just goes up to him and says, "Would you mind if I started?" Like, kind of Vince and Michael.
What Russell Westbrook did for the Clippers.
Yeah, kind of like that, because it's like, we was like just an efficient shooter, 62%, 60%. Like, this is 60%. How many times does this guy break 60% true shooting in his career? Like, this is crazy shit. I mean, so he's just a really, really solid, smart, error-free player who plays like really high impact defense. And I think if he starts to get his mobility right, he starts to trust his body a little bit more, because guys who get injured, like, it's really hard to trust your body, right? Like, you don't know if you can go there. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like, I'm sure, like, if his life depended on it, he can move a little bit faster. But like right now, it's just like, I don't know if I want to go too far that way or that way or that way and tweak something. So once he starts to like get back into the rhythm of it, and I hope that they have this sort of plan to just break him out over the year, I would love to just see him be like one of those guys who just sticks around, man. I would be so happy if he's a guy who just, like, gets healthy. And again, there have been situations like this where guys have been like pretty injury prone, and then touch wood, like, they stay a little bit healthier towards like the latter end of their career. Vince Carter was an example of a guy, yes, who went through a lot of injuries in Toronto, and then he was relatively healthy for the rest of his career. Who's another example?
Grant Hill.
Grant Hill's a great example. Yeah, Grant Hill was a great example of just a guy who kind of morphed into this, like, I mean, first of all, Otto's never been the player Grant Hill was, nor was he the player that Vince was or whatever. But the player he was is like the greatest role player I've ever seen in my life. Oh, the days we would be the funny thing about Otto is, like, for me, this was always the guy I traded for in 2K. Otto coming to Toronto was, like, for me, a dream come true, because every time I would fire up 2K, when we had DeMar and Kyle, whatever, before we drafted OG, but even after we drafted OG, my whole thought process was, bro, you need somebody who can do something with LeBron, and we don't have it. We have CJ Miles or whatever. So first thing I would always do is trade something in like 2 first-round picks and get Otto Porter Jr., man. It was like my go-to move, and he was like the smoothest fucking shooter in that game. And I just loved this game. I've always loved this game, and I'm just so happy he's here.
I know they're ramping him up, and I think he ended 1 or 2 games, but yeah, hopefully, like in the new year, we get that closing unit together with Otto, Siakam, OG, Scottie, and then a 5th guy.
Yeah,
Dennis. But Yeah, I'm gonna go, but
Yeah, man.
Koloko. I mean, man, if the bench becomes Koloko and Otto, oh,
Oh my God.
those
Koloko and
two
Otto
right
is
there,
like
those two right there,
intelligence,
and then
spacing. I mean, wow.
three more guys, 2 to 3 more guys. Oh,
That would be incredible. I would be really happy.
if
And look,
you Dennis, if you
Malachi could be a part of
oh
that.
Malachi, yeah, I just forgot Flynn, Otto, and Koloko. Now we're cooking with gas.
Gradey. And if
Now we're
Gradey
cooking
can
with
develop,
gas. Now we're cooking.
Gradey, Otto,
And
Koloko.
and I think you have to pair Gary. If you're gonna keep Gary on the bench, you have to pair him up with Scottie because Scottie gets the most out of him. Scottie gets the most involved, right? Because it's we need something out of Gary, and he's better than he's showing. And I think Scottie brings the best out of him, and they have a good synergy.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Anyways, man, peace. Have a good night.
You too.
Cheers. Okay, we have no other callers, so that's great. We've been doing like 4-hour call-in shows, and they are long. I don't mind taking 1 or 2 more callers. That's totally cool. We can have another conversation. I'll apologize if that conversation went even a little bit negative. My goal in this conversation was to stay relatively positive, not because I have some mandate to be positive. It's just, I mean, apart from my Jack Armstrong ramblings, I generally feel like there's really nothing negative to say about this game. I mean, you escaped. You escaped against a team that is, in my humble opinion, a little bit better than you right now. They're missing Andrew Nembhard. Yes, they are. I mean, they're not perfectly healthy, and Andrew Nembhard makes a difference in that second unit. But at the end of the day, you're on a back-to-back. You're on the road. You're not, you didn't get like a crazy shooting night from somebody. You didn't get like someone coming off the bench and scoring 30, and it was like, okay, Malachi Flynn had a 30-point game and it just bailed you out. No, I think you had to work hard for this. I think hopefully this is something you can build on. And luckily for the Raptors, man, another touch wood moment. I say this and tempt fate, and we get blown out by frigging the Chicago Bulls. You have the Chicago Bulls on Friday, and the Chicago Bulls are a flaming mess right now. BPM. I wonder if your thing stands for box plus minus, but thank you for the €5. That's awesome. Thank you so much, man. Jack Armstrong on a pod prior to the season crying about Scottie complaining, saying he hasn't earned it. Not surprised with negative Scottie energy. I completely agree. Like, there are people out there that just have like this idea of like, you gotta earn it. You gotta earn it. Like, there was a person, I complained about this on Twitter, and someone said, Siakam is all NBA. Siakam is a champion. Scottie, I'm like, bro, whoa, 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 chill. He's covering a game, not a fucking election. Okay. Like, did the guy step out of bounds and not step out of bounds? That's all I want to know. Did he blow the coverage or not? Did he defend or not? Did he fucking take a good shot or a bad shot? Like, I think I just want to know this personally. That's what I want to know. I'm going to make a suggestion to y'all, and this is going to be very, very much a protest against MLSC. But I hope that enough of you can hear me out on this and find a way to access this. Give your brains a break from this propaganda machine that is MLSC, Jack. You're not learning anything. I promise you. There are other broadcast crews out there. Go check Reddit for like a thread. I promise I have nothing to do with it. I don't know what you're going to find in that, but I'm sure consensus will build over some time. Golden State Warriors broadcast, terrible, terrible, terrible. Everybody else, a little bit better than them. I really like Antonio Daniels. I love Antonio Daniels. I don't know if he's still doing New Orleans Pelicans. I love listening to that dude. There are a lot of good broadcasters out there that actually teach the game in a really high level. They'll give you a balanced perspective on what players on your team are actually doing. If you listen to Brian Scalabrine talk about the Raptors offense, be like, this is not 0.5 offense. This guy's in the wrong place. This is a former player. And what a beautiful thing, instead of listening to me or Samson talk about it after, you could have a fucking former player or a coach or like a really, really like a pro talking you through what the other team is doing. And they're not all such homers where like they're just like, oh, that was definitely a foul on Siakam. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. And they're definitely not a propaganda machine where they're just like, oh, Siakam is the man. Like, they're not doing this shit. you're wasting time. This is an audio visual format, right? I mean, imagine if I just put myself on mute right now and force you to look at my stupid face for it's just stupid. So my point is, like, take a break from it. I promise you, like, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I might just do it if I can find somebody talented enough with me to do it. If I can find someone to do the play-by-play with me, I will literally, like, supplement your feed by doing a play-by-play with the game live as it's going on, where I'll put in a little bit of background noise, like the arena noise, fill it in, and just do the game. I want to do it one time. I'll find someone really talented to do play-by-play for me so I can do color commentary. I don't want to do play-by-play, man. It's not my skill. I don't think I'd be good at it. But Dave Kaufman saying most of them do that, it's not nearly as biased, number one. Number two, at the very least, it won't be biased about the Raptors. You know what I mean? You get a fair evaluation. Like today, you heard Jack Armstrong, fanboy a little bit over Ben Mathurin because he's Canadian, and I understand that. Even though Jack is not Canadian, he's from where I'm from, New York. But you did hear him credit Tyrese Halliburton for some plays that he was making. You did hear him talk about how difficult it is to guard Miles Turner. Comments like this, just maybe hear the other side of it. Because I think if you hear the other side of it, you're actually going to get a more balanced perspective on how people actually feel about Gary Trent Jr. And wouldn't that be a much better thing than to sit in the fucking echo chamber and listen to MLSE higher ups basically feed you what the propaganda machine is telling them? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to sound like I'm trying to like swear you off of MLSE. I'm just saying, like, try to listen to the other side, because I promise you it is at the very least 10 times more entertaining. 90% of teams broadcasts, I think, are better than the Raptors. Just my opinion. Anyways, bring on Dell. Dell, what up, man?
What's good? What's good? How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I am chilling. Same deal as before. I couldn't catch all of the game. Kind of frustrating, but it's okay.
Shoot.
But I don't know. It looked close from what I could tell. The little portions that I saw, I felt like the team played okay. I don't know if that's how it actually went, though.
Yeah, it was like it went exactly like this.
Oh, okay. At least the graph's looking a little better.
It doesn't look like it was looking before. I mean, they came out to a pretty, like, quick start. Darko called a timeout. It was great. Yeah. Yeah, overall, I think it was a really good game. Pascal Siakam had a huge night. Scottie Barnes was Jakob Poeltl was a little bit turnover prone, a little difficult matchup. Gary Trent missed 2 late free throws. Yeah. So and then you stole one on the road. But yeah.
Let me ask then. I may get away from the players themselves. In terms of the development of the coaching, I feel like the sample size is a little bit bigger for you to probably gauge the direction of travel. What would you say you've seen from Darko that makes you feel like things are going well, things are going bad, this could improve? What is that analysis like?
It's a great question. So my biggest concerns are in-game adjustments and trusting players a little too much for my liking, but maybe I'm naturally not as trusting as he is. He's letting people play through their mistakes, and I think there's a balancing act. Tonight, we saw no Gradey Dick for the first time all season. This is the first DNP that he flung, and I think that is a really good thing because he almost saved Gradey from himself, right? Because you can't. So here's the thing: like, Darko's got a really, really, really good handle for development. I think that's what I like about him. Not to dance all over the question, so maybe I can sort it out by saying what I really like about him and then what I find to be a bit of a weakness. So what I really, really like about him is that I really trust his eye for understanding development of young players, right? So I really like that he's bred so much confidence into Malachi Flynn, that he seems to genuinely care about him. It seems like Malachi really believes that relationship is real for him, and maybe he's really just been looking for that. And never doubt what belief can do for a person's confidence, right? I like that he has selectively, game by game, depending on who the matchup is or what the matchup is, he's kind of chosen to experiment a little bit more with increased responsibilities for certain guys. I think a lot of people have had issues with his rotations. I certainly have, but I wonder, I always like to examine, like, what if I'm completely wrong? So I've had a lot of issues with this Barnes plus bench unit, or Barnes and OG plus bench unit. But what if putting Barnes and OG with three guys who are a little less talented? I mean, you're not really putting with three guys less talented. I mean, like, these are good players. Otto and Gary are good players. They have started many games in the league. So it's not like you're putting them, but like in the games where OG and Gary were missing, suddenly that bench unit was very diluted. In which case, I felt like he needed to adjust. Do you see what I mean? I'm going back and forth. Like there seems to be like a very delicate balance between hurting people's feelings and disrupting rhythm and chemistry. So generally speaking, I like that he understands people pretty well, and it seems like he's connecting with people really well. Even the players who are not necessarily in his rotation don't seem to be like scowling in his direction. You know what I mean? Like Gary Trent Jr. has had his touches reduced, usage reduced, analytics reduced. He doesn't seem to be like, he doesn't seem to hate him. Like when he talks about him, he doesn't seem to hate him. He seems to understand it, which means to me at least that the communication has been there. So more importantly than anything, I like his communication skills. I like that he communicates with the media honestly, even though they don't understand what he's saying. Not because of accent, but because he's talking above their level in terms of basketball intelligence.
I get that.
And I like that he seems to, at least from what I've heard, seems to really communicate with his players very directly and honestly. And behind closed doors, again, from what I've heard, is he will tell someone when they've had a terrible game. Like he will directly address them and say, look, you did not play well tonight. I need you to do this. But because he is able to approach it with a sense of confidence, enthusiasm, and passion, they are receiving it differently.
It's not like a personal thing. It's more.
Yeah. So like, for instance, I'm a cinematographer. Not that you can tell from my lighting right now. I promise I'm pretty good at lighting other people. I just don't know how to light myself ever. And I've never known how to do it. So if right now I was to give you like a critique on your lighting setup right now, right? I could do it I could say the same thing two different ways, and you would feel it very differently. And after we leave the conversation, you would either feel empowered or you feel disempowered. You feel criticized. Or you would feel like seen. And I've had to learn this myself. So I really appreciate when someone has learned this themselves, that there is a way to tell someone that they've had a bad game in a way that they A, believe you, but B, don't lose confidence that you've lost confidence in them, that they don't feel like they're being scolded, that they genuinely still feel believed in. And part of that is controlling your own energy when you're approaching them with it, right? And so much of like being able to relate to others is first understanding yourself. I think Darko has like a really good command of himself. He sort of has like a good, like, this is what I'm about. This is who I am. I'm about other people. So I'm about service. So once he's solidified that, then he has a really easy time. So let's say right now, I'm like a bit of a dick about your lighting setup. Be like, you're going to want to fix that and that. Like, there's just already like that sort of hostile tone, I can't really do it because I don't dislike you, and I'm kind of in a generally good mood, so I don't know how to do that. But trust me, there's definitely a way that I myself, like even on a set, have talked to an actor or talked to one of my crew, and they have taken it the wrong way, where there's been a little bit of frustration in my voice, maybe, and they have sensed that differently because maybe that's their relationship with frustration is tied to something in their childhood. So he is taking a lot of time to, in the summer, understand these people, and now he is starting to approach them. So if that makes sense. Like he takes this entire, like, wow, I'm really dancing all over the place because you've really unlocked a question that I think requires a lot of deep thought. So a lot of the stuff that I heard about him when he was hired, because I did like my own little tour around the world to figure out, players that he's coached, people that he knew, people from my hometown who remember him, and just trying to understand who this man was from like 18 onward. Like, who was he back then? How has he grown? Because I feel like I have a much clearer perspective on who a person is once I can see the past 20 years a little bit more clearly, see his career read the Wikipedia page, fine, read the bio, fine, read the paper that he wrote, fine, but then try to get like the anecdotal stuff, like how was he in the coffee shop, how was he in the conference, how was he in this little private event that you guys did, how was he in the coaching clinic that you guys did, was he approachable when the cameras were off, because so many people have like public lives, but they're completely different privately, but then the players deal with you privately, not publicly. So it's more important for me to understand, like, okay, once the camera's off, this guy's like really, really, really fucking mean. That would be very interesting to know that, about him. So one thing that I picked up on in almost all cases was that he's very patient. Like he has a balanced amount of energy. So you would think he's actually very impatient, but actually he's a very patient person. Like he has this sort of like stoic approach to like, okay. And
like the kind of teacher you'd want to have, sort of thing.
Exactly. It is exactly the type of teacher anyone would want to have. And one thing I fail to do sometimes, actually a lot of times, is I jump into things without doing research. This is a sign of actually quite an impulsive and stupid person. And I'm not a stupid person, so I don't understand why I do this, but it's a sign that I'm not as smart as I think I am, because I'll often, like, I would jump into starting a podcast without researching a podcast, and then I would just try to sink or swim based on momentum, and then maybe a week later, then I would do my deep dive. He does the deep dive before moving one muscle. So he will do the entire research, he will do the entire game plan, he will talk to you, get a feel for you, and then he will approach how you need to fix your footwork, right? So the relationship must be built before the communication starts, basically. The communication and the criticism and the feedback is only going to be as valid as how much the person is trusting what is coming at them, right? At the end of the day, you and I have had 5 conversations. What I could say to you today, potentially, is probably going to be interpreted very differently than what I would have said to you the first time we spoke, right? So we have kind of built a sort of rapport over these conversations where you can sort of understand where we're coming from. I know a few things about you, you know a few things about me. So now there's like a little bit more of a rapport. So I think most coaches fail to register how important that side is because they don't have the humility to realize that this is a relationship. They view it like a job. It is a job, for sure. It's a job, yeah. But it's actually, at the end of the day, is a relationship. If you want to connect with people, you have to build this sort of like rapport and trust. And he is big on that. And unlike people who build it from the textbook standpoint of like kind of fake it till you make it, mirror response, tell people what they want to hear, he's actually got like the code of like, he's well raised enough to be able to be honest with people. So he's able to say something blunt to Scottie, like, you have to be good at 3 things. You can't be good at everything. That may not be what necessarily a young player wants to hear, but it is what he needs to hear. And it's going to, at the same time, also help grow. Now that I have waxed poetic about things that I like about him, I also like his timeouts. Not timeouts. I don't like his timeouts. I don't like his lineups. Those are things that I don't like. I like his plays designed out of timeouts. And it gives you a little bit of an insight into his tactical approach to the game, which is really hard to gauge with a young roster that's still trying to figure out their offensive system and that has kind of disrupted their offensive system many times. But it tells you a little bit about how studious he is with the game, how studious he is of scouting reports, how detail-oriented he is. Because not all coaches are equally detail-oriented. I've heard horror stories of first-year coaches that really just kind of sleepwalk through scouting meetings and then they say, rah, rah, good job, and they leave shit up to their assistants. Yeah, so I think overall, like I'm getting a good feeling of him. In terms of things that I don't like, I really don't like his. I don't like how he sees Dennis Schroeder. That's one big criticism for me. I don't like that. And number 2, I really don't like. I feel like he is second. I could be wrong. And I'll be humble enough to realize that I don't know what he's doing better than he knows what he's doing. I can only judge it in hindsight. So I can say, not, bringing in Scottie was a mistake, in Boston, but you don't know if Scottie comes in and he turns the ball over 2 times, and then maybe bringing in Scottie was the stupidest mistake ever, and you still lose the game, but you lose it completely differently. And now you'll never face criticism for bringing in a starter, but at the end of the day, like, you never know how it could have turned out, right? It's just revisionist history. but I feel like he's been a little bit slow with, making. I think things are coming a little fast for him too. I think there's like a bit of an adjustment period. I don't think that's necessarily a criticism, more so like that's just a fact.
Observation.
Just an observation. Like first year head coaches, they all have these sort of like funny moments where it's like they call a timeout that they didn't know they had, or they forget like something about head coaching because they've been an assistant for so long. They don't ever have to do that. They struggle with rotations because head coaches generally, assistant coaches typically do not like make calls on who goes in, who goes out. This is typically a head coach thing. So the stuff that's very head coaching oriented, I would not be surprised if he takes a little while to adjust to that. But overall, I think like I would give him like a C minus, to a C plus.
Is that a C minus? I hope it's not a silly question, but I hope is this a C minus in terms of your general expectation for him, or what you would gauge first year coaches by?
That's fair. I'm not grading on a curve. I'm grading coaching as coaching. But fair enough. You're right. Like it is a coaching. It's for a coach. It's for a head coach. So basically, like, my grade for Pascal Siakam being a C minus, which will probably piss off a lot of people, is my grade for somebody who has 26% usage, takes as many shots as he takes, and is paid as much money as he's paid. Right. I'm not going to judge Pascal Siakam on the curve of Malachi Flynn, and I'm not going to judge Malachi Flynn on the curve of a former fourth overall pick who's putting up 6+ box plus minus. Like I'm trying to like contextualize who these players are and what their roles are on the offense. So Darko is a head coach. So I'm going to have to compare him to Rick Carlisle and his peers, right? So fair enough, right? Like if you're giving a first year head coach in the first, 15 games, a C minus, that's probably a very good sign. Yeah.
Agreed. Okay. Yeah. If I can lend any words to what I feel like I've seen from the games as well. Again, I feel like I say this all the time just in case there's people listening in the chat and maybe I don't sound like a basketball mind. It's because I'm not really much more of a soccer guy. So like I come with that kind of those kinds of eyes. I would say that I want to echo some points. I do like how he's more trusting with the youth in the team. I tend to have an affinity for coaches who exude a little more, not necessarily like military type discipline towards the players and having to have control to that level necessarily. And maybe you have to build and like actually know the players as people and acclimatize to the team and the organization to be able to get to that standpoint. But I feel like he has a very good gauge of who he is and himself, that for whatever that's going to look like under Darko, I feel like we're trending in that direction actually. And even the growing pains of what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like it's not like a kamikaze type, every man for himself, like how the Houston Rockets used to look with Jalen Green and them. I don't get that sort of vibe from these guys, so that I'm happy about that. And I feel like I've even mellowed out in terms of my expectation as far as, obviously we all want to win as Raptors fans, or I hope we do. But as long as we keep trending generally in the right direction over the season, there's going to be maybe some bad ruts or whatever it is. I think I can even accept that. It's just maybe we should do health checks after 20 games, 40 games, or 60 games. That's probably what's better than game to game to game. So I'm not overreacting. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, to the broader perspective of what is the point of this season, if not development, because it's certainly not championships, unless of course they are really, really high on this team, and I don't know it yet. It's I think it's getting guys reps, right? Like you have to grow with it. There are certain young players on this team that just need development reps, and I know that people necessarily. First of all, Kuato from Mars, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Way to go, Scottie and gang. Happy to see all the passion from Raptor fans. Always good live after in the Pantera B-ball world. Cheers, everyone. Yeah, man, absolutely. And 2K teacher, incredible win tonight. I love when Pascal and Scottie play well off of each other. It's almost unguardable, especially when Pascal is hitting his three. I've just subconsciously adjusted your threes for 3 because he hit 1. And Flynn, and he continues to prove you right. Love when he's on the floor now. I am just happy that people are starting to slowly forget what I said about Malachi Flynn like 4 weeks ago. Yeah, I had to beat the drum very loud positively to make up and compensate for how loudly I beat it negatively. Now I feel I learned something from that too, which is, you know, again, like I like following people that I learn from. Like, generally speaking, like I like to listen to things that I learn from, whether that be crime psychology podcasts or whether that be, you know, social media influencers, whether that be a trainer on social, or whether that be, you know, another basketball YouTuber or whatever. Like, even the careers of people that I like to follow, like politics, whatever, the people like who are speaking to the media all the time. I want to be able to learn something from them and take something from them and implement something from them. And I think with Darko Rajakovic, from everything I'd heard about him, again, the dentist thing is just really blinding me from like, you know, because I think that it's kind of screwing a few things up, and it doesn't need to. I think one thing that I've just kind of realized with him is how much a friend of mine helped me when I was going through a really tough time. Like, after so in 2000 and was it, wow, time is phasey, 2019, I had a brain tumor. So
Oh damn.
what am I hearing? Some crazy shit. So in 2019, I had a brain tumor. So I after I was recovering from that, I had a friend, Masha, and Masha was also working at Penn Dance Film Festival with me, and she was like the kindest, most compassionate person I'd ever met in my life. And everything I would do wrong, and I was like kind of recovering from the brain surgery, but I was also kind of recovering from like a 3-year breakup, and it was just like a very downtrodden time for like 2 months of my life. And in the 2 months of my life, she went to Chile and Argentina, and she was on this vacation. So she would sometimes go, and within the vacation, she would chime in and ask me how I'm doing. And then I would be like, I'm miserable. And, you know, like, I miss this girl or whatever. And she would come in and she would be like, okay, like, let's watch a movie together. So we would time it. So we'd watch it at the same time. We'd like put on our headphones and we watch it together. She extended so much compassion and empathy and understanding. And no matter how stupid the idea expressed was, or how bad it was, or how wrong it was, or even like, you know, I'd be like, I hate this person today or whatever. There was never a judgment back. Like, there was just like boundless compassion, understanding, empathy, listening. And I got to tell you, like, somehow through that process, without realizing it, in the 2 months, my life got so much better. I started working out like crazy. I started like fixing everything in my life. I started getting like way more confident, way more ambitious. Suddenly, like, all the childhood trauma started to float away. And I was like, is this the brain tumor going away? Or is this just this person who's come into my life and been so, so freaking instrumental? And I think that time and time again in my life, when I have had a person come in and make this transformative impact in my life, it has almost always been this type of person, a person who took the time, had the patience to hear out the ugliness and still stay, you know, to let you work through it. And so, like, that's what I'm appreciating about Darko, you know, like these players, they're fighting for something that is very meaningful to them, you know, and nobody is trying to go out there and miss 15 shots, and he gets that. So everyone is trying. So he's leading with positive intent, and then he's empowering them and breathing like not only confidence into them, but also like actually tactically fixing their game. So it's like, no wonder players like Desmond Bain and Mikal Bridges, like years after being coached by this guy, are still singing his praises. Like, man, love my man Darko. Like, look at how Dennis Schroeder talks about him. Yes, I always address it in a negative light, but the way that he talks about Darko should be an indication also. Like, from a negative side, it can be like, okay, well, this is nepotism. On the positive side, it can be like, what kind of an impression did Darko make on this bench player's life that he's come to Toronto to be coached by him, right? Like, there is something to that as well. So you can definitely say this, that NBA players are lied to a lot. They are lied to a lot. They're lied to by fans. They're lied to by their families. I've known a couple in my life, and man, the shit that they tell you about like uncles hitting them up and cousins hitting them up and like fucking neighbors coming out of the woodworks from like, oh, you know, it's, you got to be so guarded, man. When you're making like so much money and everyone knows how much money you're making, like everyone's like, you know, like you got a mom, you got a dad on Facebook. Everyone's like, blessings, blessings, blessings. And bro, all they're fucking thinking is money, money, money. I can't wait. I can't wait to come over. When's he going to be around? And it's like, bro, the first time they catch you, first comment, like, my business is really struggling, you know. These people are fucking crazy, but like that's human. Like it's human. You see, you're broke. This person's got millions of dollars. You don't know how much of that money they're paying to taxes, agents, whatever. But like you see money, and these people always got to be so closed off. So for someone to just tell them the truth, that really sticks. It really matters. Matters so much.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can even add something to this, and maybe this is obvious, I don't know if it's not or if it is. It feels like all of this is just a microcosm of life, in that, I guess, to different degrees. We're not best, or at least we're not NBA players here, but anyone, even if you're at a lower level, mid level, whatever, wherever you are in life, you will probably feel that to some degree. At some point, you'll be in an environment where people are duplicitous. They say what they don't mean. They say what you think they mean, and then it's a different thing the next day. The energy just shifts all over the place. It's like quicksand everywhere. You just don't know where your foundation is. And then at some point, if you're lucky, you come into contact with someone who is like, this is what it is. I may not always be right, but this is what I see, and you can trust me to actually always give you the real as I see it. And that, the empowerment of that different energy. So
it totally is. Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'm happy that the players have somebody that they can trust, and maybe also, maybe Pascal was a little bit wary of this guy at first. Who is this guy replacing this coach that I've had for so long? I don't have Rico Hines. I don't have this. I don't have that. But like maybe he's also, getting him to buy in, because I'm seeing a little less of the terrible things I was seeing earlier in the year, like Pascal just refusing to box out and shit. Like today, he guarded a little bit better today than he has in most games this year. Rebounding a little bit more. I mean, I don't think 3 offensive rebounds. I'm willing to bet he hasn't had 5. Like, I gotta check. Like, I don't think he's had 3 offensive rebounds in a game in a while. This is not a normal occurrence for Pascal Siakam. Granted, again, like to proportionize it, like to make it proportionate, is a high possession game. You might have more offensive rebounds, not necessarily the best rebounding team as well. But it just felt like the force that he played with was like lacking in the beginning. And that doesn't mean that he has to have 35% usage. You can play with this force with 22% usage, 25% usage. But this force is necessary because, like, to me, like a team where your best players play like your 5th best players is unnatural.
Like the Tim
because because teams are gearing up for your best players to do certain things, and they're kind of leaving your not best players. They're not going to start treating, for instance, like they're not going to start treating Dennis Schroeder like Pascal Siakam because Dennis Schroeder decides to take Pascal Siakam's role for a game. Does that make sense? Yes. They're not going to start treating Scottie Barnes like OG Anunoby at the 3-point line just because he's shooting better than OG Anunoby. It takes a while for defenses to adjust. And the important thing is, you could have, let's just say, for instance, as a hypothetical, you got like a Klay Thompson lookalike who had none of Klay Thompson's actual skill, but just could mimic all of his movements and had his same physical profile, and just got him onto your team. It would absolutely shift all spacing, even if he never got the ball. You would just have him run around, and defenses would be shifting all over the fucking place in order to accommodate him running around. You'd be like, hey, Klay, fake Klay, you just want to run around and do some cardio? Yeah, that's Klay Thompson. Oh my God. Like it would create driving angles left and right, and he would never have to touch the ball to do it. And that's the point. So if Pascal Siakam is the guy and Scottie is the guy that the scouting report is really, really honing in on, and either one of these guys decide to sit in the corner for an entire possession, you've taken yourself out of the possession. Right?
Right, I get you.
So like the least selfish thing that you could humanly possibly do as a star player is be a star. That's the least selfish thing you could possibly do. I often say this: stars need to save role players from themselves. Sometimes Nikola Jokic needs to save Jamal Murray. No, not calling Jamal Murray necessarily a role player, but relative to Nikola Jokic, he is. Or save Aaron Gordon. Like Nikola Jokic has to save Aaron Gordon from himself, because Aaron Gordon is going to have worse ideas on the basketball court than Nikola Jokic.
Right.
Granted, over time, by osmosis, we can also learn. Just like players learn from Chris Paul, I'm sure that these players all will learn from Darko Rajakovic. I have seen this for sure. Like when guys leave the San Antonio system, they're better players. They're always better players. So I don't know. It'll be very interesting. But I think, if the goal was to change the culture, so far, but also very early to tell. If the goal was to change how many assists this team gets, 100% accomplished. This team gets a lot more assists now. If the goal was to get more 3-pointers, mission accomplished. If the goal was to breathe a little bit more life and juice and opportunity into the young players, so far, mission accomplished. I mean, Koloko hasn't played. If Gary Trent is not necessarily part of your equation for young players and Gradey Dick is just being excused as being a rookie, I think so far Darko gets great grades for that. So I think overall, like maybe I was a little bit harsh on Twitter when I gave him a C-, but also he did just coach his best game right now. So maybe I'm just being a prisoner of the moment too.
That's fair. Yeah. This Indiana team, are they good? I keep hearing great things about Tyrese Halliburton, but I'm not sure. I haven't watched the games. I don't know what's going on over there. So I didn't know how to even this one.
They are and they're not. They're tough. Ironically, Indiana and Orlando are like inverted teams. So Orlando is all defense, no threes. They muck it up. They get into the paint. They get into the paint at will. They beat you up. They get to the line. Indiana is the complete flip opposite. Indiana is a team that does not play defense at all. They have one shot blocker, 2 shot blockers, 1.5 shot blockers really in Jalen and Miles Turner. And then naturally, they're going to run it up and down the court and just they're going to trust that you can't keep up with their rhythm. And Orlando is going to trust that you can't keep up with their length. And in every single case, I think both of these teams are primed for failure in the playoffs. But I think they'll be very successful in the regular season. And both of them, I think, are like, I had both of these teams finishing above the Raptors in the regular season in my preseason preview. I'm pretty sure. I know I had the Magic finishing above. I'm pretty sure I had Indiana. I'm a very big Tyrese Halliburton fan. Tyrese is like one of my favorite players because he's just so quick with the basketball. He reminds me of like, I mean, there was a podcast with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I quote Paul Pierce saying, "It's the first time I've ever seen a player who can shoot and pass like this." And I mean, it is Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce is known to say dumb shit. He also thinks that he had a better career than Dwayne Wade. Yeah, but like I think he's right. Like I've never like I watched the greatest point guards of all time. One of my like of all the positions that I have been obsessed with in my life, that is the position. From Magic to Jason Kidd to Stephon Marbury. One of those is not like the other, fine, but like I like Stephon Marbury growing up. To Skip to my Lou, like I to Mark Jackson to Andre Miller. Like I have studied the point guards at the point guards. Like I have been obsessed with being, you know, a point guard myself. So I really, really like to study point guards. Probably why I'm also so critical of point guards. Dennis Schroeder, Fred VanVleet, Scottie Barnes. Like you can see right down the middle, my obsession becomes who is the point guard, who is not the point guard,
right.
And who is most aligned with what my vision of what a point guard should be. So yeah, I've completely lost my train of thought. Right, with Tyrese Halliburton, I think he might be the fastest passer I've ever seen in my life. In terms of like just in my hands, gone, up the court, like it. He's got his own weird rhythm. The way he controls the game is like he's everywhere. He's maestro, like he's Beethoven. I don't know how to explain it. It is Steve Nash with the Phoenix Suns, but I'm sorry to say this to Canadian audience, it's better. Like it's different. It's better though. Like he is insanity, man. I mean, maybe I have to pump the brakes a little bit, but the analytics are telling me so far this year he's better. And he's so much younger. Like when Steve hit that peak at like 28, 29, 30, you know, he's doing this at 24. So if he stays healthy, again, touch wood, as much as they are an Eastern Conference rival, I do love beautiful basketball. He's like a plus size. He's more athletic. He's a little bit bigger than Steve Nash. I mean, this guy could really, really, really like he's crossing borders between Steve Nash and Jason Kidd. Ironically, two players who are sort of like very, very closely linked. Phoenix Mavericks. They were on the same team. Yeah, like he's got that. He's got that like incredible transition play. He's awesome.
I'm gonna have to keep my eye out for this guy because I don't know. I was just trying to what's it called? Just scanning Twitter to see what was going on through the league outside the Raptors. Like first time I've done that this year actually, and I just kept seeing his name pop up. I was like, "What's he doing?" And I saw the numbers. It's like this is going. Why aren't more people talking about it? It just felt like that to me.
Yeah, He's incredible. I think he's second or third in the league in APM right now. He has a legit chance if they continue, like if they somehow crack like 52 wins or something crazy like that, and they very well could, as much as I think they'll crater in the playoffs. He could be in the conversation for MVP. He could be like top 2, top 3. I think right now, it's between Jokic, Embiid, and Shea and Tyrese.
Tatum isn't in that conversation right now.
I don't think so. I don't think so. One of my favorite players as well, but I don't think so. Yeah. Anyway, Del, thanks a lot for calling in, man. I really appreciate it.
Always thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. See ya.
Keep doing it. I'll see you later.
Thank you, man. But pretty fact-based. Don't resort to ad hominem attacks, and we're good. You know, we can have an actual debate in this day and age, and it could be great. It could be beautiful. It doesn't have to result in yelling or screaming or whatever. That would be great. Jonathan Convoy, I want to know that. Great. What's your topic? What do you and I disagree on that you and I could have a conversation about that would be a debate? Think on it. You can send me an email. We can set it up. But yeah, I'll open it up. I'll message, some people. I don't know, message people. I want to open this up. Like I want to actually have a thing because I don't know. I like this channel because it's open. Over the last couple of days, I've started to wonder if it's too open. But then I remember thinking to myself, no, actually, that's what you love about it. Don't let people, who are trying to threaten this, close it down and make it something that it's not. No, you love that it's open. You love that it's not just a group of your buddies huddling around. Regardless of what you may think, the last thing in the world that I want is like someone to just come on and mirror everything I'm saying and just be like, oh, I agree with everything you're saying. I like pushback. I just appreciate more like respectful pushback. So yeah, like we can have a debate. We can debate. I don't know. Okay. Like Vince and Tracy, what would have been, you know what I mean? Like that versus like whatever the hell that team would have been versus Kawhi and, Kalo or something like that. Right. I don't know. Like debate the merits of how like there are some debates that are just so obvious. Like if I say debate Sam Presti's process with the Thunder and Masai's process here, like I don't think I could defend that with a straight face. Wouldn't have one argument to present to you. But even Wemby versus Chad or things like that. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be Raptors related. Maybe it can be broader related. But yeah, just no, I did not. Invite NBA, Trev. I would love to hear him on your platform. He talks about Twitter Spaces. Would love to see you two interact every once in a while. You're both loyal, respected Raptor fans as we are. He's had an open invite for about a year. He's talked about calling in. He's talked about having his cousin call in. Nephew call in. They haven't called in. So I'm not saying that he's ducking anything. I'm just saying the invite has been open. These lives are very open, like all you need is a internet connection and a link, as evidenced by the trolls in our last live. So it feels like, he doesn't want to. I think there was a Twitter Spaces where someone said that he was going to have me and him on, and I got really excited. So I was like, great, I'm on, and he's like, oh, he doesn't want to come on anymore. So it's New York on New York crime, man. I don't like that. So, whoa. I have to catch myself sometimes. I get, I have a little bit of that Mamba mentality, if you will. You know what I mean? Nah, you're not NBA Trev. What up? Hello? No, you're not Trev. What is up with these people just calling in with the fucking name NBA Trev? Like, what are you going to do? Like, come on, man. Yeah, but I mean, set it up. Like, whatever. I don't know. Like, I haven't really heard what he's been saying for the last little while. I kind of I'm not saying like I hate that he keeps getting brought up here. I understand we have a very similar demographic. He may not realize it. I remember last year when he talked about me, he's like, oh, he has like a whole bunch of white people who are like, I'm like, bro, if you realize like what our demographic actually looks like, because I know what our demographic looks like, he thought it was like old white people that listen to Pensar basketball, or young white people who listen to Pensar basketball. Because apparently I look like Eminem to him. And I was just like, yeesh. Like, he does not know that we have the exact same audience. We do. I just like, yeah, it's the same. That, no, that I will ban straight up. Nope, not gonna happen. So weird. Sorry. Anyways, take care, guys. I don't know about that. Like, honestly, I've listened to him a few times. Seems really, he's got like a really good flow. Does that make sense? Like, I can be hitchy sometimes, right? I'm not like super smooth. You know what I mean? It's something to admire about someone. Like, they can make something interesting and entertaining, and they can just speak off the cuff for like 2 hours or an hour or whatever he does, right? I mean, it's not necessarily my taste per se, but like, I mean, I can listen to it without losing my mind for like 20 minutes. I can. That is more than I can say for some of the people. Damn. How about giving a perspective on Euroball and how the NBA can take ideas to improve the game? That's interesting. It doesn't really seem like a debate, does it? Unless, of course, we're going to debate the merits of Euroball versus. We have David Cowan calling in for the third time. David, what's up? Nope. No. Okay, David. We're going to ban you, require all guests to sign in. Got it. So from now on, thanks to David, who I'm assuming is Salvatore Russo, we're going to unfortunately have to authenticate all guests from now on. So no more 15 people coming into the live with fake names and stuff like that. All right. Now we're going to have 15 people with, Facebook accounts that were started 2 days ago. So this is not going to work either, but we'll try. Anyway. I think the fan base culture in Europe has a lot to teach North America. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. How about, okay, yeah, so we got that. I mean, were there any more suggestions? Sorry, I didn't want to, that's funny. You're not that old. Raptors and Pacers and Jazz cannot tank because of small market. That would be a really interesting conversation. Is Toronto a small market? I would love to debate somebody who thinks this is a small market, and I would love to prove otherwise. Because this is a point that I have debated ad nauseum with people who are in other markets like Boston, New York, etc. And they keep telling me that I need to cover another team because the market here is too small. And I'm just like, y'all are insane. Like, this market is awesome. They're like, if you did this for the New York Knicks, and I'm like, I hate the New York Knicks. Oops, bro. If I had to cover a team with RJ Barrett and Julius Randle as my best players, okay, like I like Jalen Brunson a lot. Okay, that's one player on that team that I like, and I like Emmanuel Quickly, and I like Isaiah Hartenstein. It's not that bad. They lost Derrick Rose. I like Derrick Rose prior to what I found out about him yesterday. But I gotta tell you, man, like RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, shit. Nah. I don't care if I had 3 times the audience not covering the Knicks. No, it's definitely not. I mean, yeah. I mean, so much of what okay, please understand me. like I have my Knicks memories and I'll hold those dear. Like if I ever met Latrell Sprewell, you will never see someone fanboy harder in your life. I love that dude. Allen Houston. I still have I have an NBA basketball, authentic leather NBA basketball signed by Allen Houston. Rucker Park still makes me like giddy like a child. Yeah, New York Hoops is awesome, man. Like I have like memories of playgrounds and high school gymnasiums, and that's what New York Hoops is to me, like a culture of people. It's not really about the Knicks, and I understand how completely weird and polarizing that is for people to understand that. Like I don't have the same attachment, but like for me, it's like when I moved to Toronto, like it was hard for me because it's like Toronto, New York, 2 times in a row, and when Toronto got over, but I gotta say, like I continued to sort of follow the Knicks, and yeah, I had a little bit of a passing interest also in like other places where, like for instance, I lived in Pennsylvania for a bit, not in Philly, in Reading, Pennsylvania, but like close enough, you know. So at least I had like an idea of Sixer fans. This was like right around when Allen Iverson was drafted and Jerry Stackhouse was still there. So 96, 97, around there. This is before the Memphis Grizzlies were there, but lived in Tennessee for a bit too. So, like again, traveling around the New Jersey Nets in East Rutherford, New Jersey, right? Like Vince Carter going to my old stomping ground, Somerville, New Jersey, and stuff. So that was cool too. But yeah, like maybe it's different for people whose parents are from New York. See, that's the difference. My parents aren't from New York, so I didn't grow up with a Knicks indoctrination, right? I get to start my own trend. Does that make sense? Like people who grew up with grandfathers who are Celtics fans and then fathers who are Celtics fans, their Celticdom or Lakerdom or Knickdom is like really intense because it's passed down generation to generation. For me, like coming over, like how much am I supposed to pick up in like 6-7 years? You know what I mean? Like we weren't in New York that long. And consider like moving from Europe 5, 8, 9, then you start moving around, go back to New York, move to New Jersey, move back to New York. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I associated with stuff where I went kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, whatever. But like it's not like my parents are from there. You know what I mean? Like if my parents were from there, it would make a massive difference for sure. Because then my dad would have been like a Ewing fan or some crazy shit like that. And then I would have had to pretend that Patrick Ewing was better than David Robinson, even though he wasn't. If I have Knicks fans here, y'all gone now. I know that. Anyways, oh my God, what the hell? Whoa, we the North. This is like some next level. Like, are you unemployed? Like, are you horribly unemployed? Are you bored? What's wrong with you? Okay, ban. Jeez. You got a smart audience. Yeah, but somehow people still listen to it, right? Like I've made a note in my life that anything that is popular is appealing to somebody somewhere. Even the Kardashians, even Jerry Springer, all of it. I can disagree with it, but it's not all bad, right? Like keeping up with the whatever it is, like all that stuff, like just Justin Bieber's music. Like I don't like Drake's music. Like why do people like Drake's music? I like Headlines. Compliments. Yep. Like I like Headlines and like 2 other songs. I have like 3 Drake songs in my life. I've never bought a Drake album. I don't get it. When I listen to him talk, like I'm like, whoa, how, what? I don't get it. But a lot of my friends like him, so I have to try to understand like where is the gap in our musical sensibilities, and I can't just say like, oh, I'm right and you're wrong, you know, because I like Kendrick Lamar and you like Drake, so you're an idiot. That's misunderstanding the point. But yeah, anyways, I have rambled on long enough. The last 38 minutes of this live have nothing to do with the game that happened and is just random musings. Anyways. Can we sign Chev to an NBA contract? Pensari, do you believe Scottie can ever fix his passiveness? Do you think anyone talks to him about it? Can I ask you a question? Just kind of curious here. You've asked this question at least a couple of times today, right? Because it's kind of it's starting to sort of freak me out. Have I not given you an adequate response? Is that why you keep asking me? Are you a different person who is asking the exact same question that somebody else asked? I'm curious. Or are you trolling me at this point and you know something about me? I'm kind of curious at this point. Okay, cool. Yeah, I do. I think he'll be fine. Just, yeah. Anyways, talk to you later, guys. See ya. Bye.